has not reached or touched you in any way, shape, or form. You're the one that has initiated the contact again. Correct?
Yes.
He doesn't have anything in his hands, correct? The dog isn't barking anymore, right? Or is not a threat anymore, right?
It stopped its advance, yes.
And you're saying that by putting the gun to Mr. Rodriguez's temple, that the dog recognized that and stopped, right?
No, sir, I'm not saying that. You're saying that I put it to his temple. I did not
You're
put it
saying
to
you
his
didn't put it to his temple.
No, I did not.
You're waving the gun around then, right?
I brought the muzzle up eye level with him and yelled, "Call your dog off."
I thought you said, "Get away" or "Stop." Isn't that what you just told us that you said?
When I brought the muzzle up,
No, when you got your gun out first.
when I pointed my gun at
Right.
the dog, I yelled, "Get back." When I brought the muzzle up, I yelled at him, "Call your dog off."
But the dog did stop, right?
Yes,
Did
sir.
it. Why then tell him to call the dog off if the dog has already stopped? You didn't need to do that, did you?
I felt I did at the time.
That's what you're saying now, but the way you're describing it to us and the way you described it yesterday is the dog stopped once you said "get back," right?
I don't know that those were my words, Mr. Martinez.
That's what you just told us this morning, right?
The dog stopped its advance. I brought the gun up and I told him, "Call your dog
You
off."
did, and then you said, gun in hand, waving it around to the ceiling, right? Not even pointing it at him or pointing to you. You said, "Call your dog off." That's what you told him at that point, right?
I didn't say that I was waving the gun around at the ceiling. I said I did a muzzle sweep. I brought the gun up from the dog to his eye level and said, "Call your dog off."
You did a muzzle sweep. Where was the muzzle of the gun pointing when you did this?
I believe it was up towards the ceiling.
Isn't that what I just described to you, that you were pointing it towards the ceiling?
Well, you said you were waving. I was waving my gun at the ceiling.
Okay, you were pointing it at the ceiling, not waving it at the ceiling then.
Yes.
And you are close enough so that Mr. Rodriguez can see the gun, right?
Yes, sir.
And he's, at that point, he still has his t-shirts on, right?
Yes.
Nothing about the fact, the way he was dressed, that would give you any indication that he was a threat, right?
Well, it's kind of hard to say that. With the oversized clothing, it's hard to say whether or not there's weapons underneath his clothing.
So you're saying that anybody, for example, a woman who wears a muumuu, she's got oversized clothing, that's somebody you got to watch out because she could have something hidden underneath that clothing, right?
Well, she's acting irrational the way Daniel was, yes.
So you're saying...
You do have to be a little bit concerned about weapons.
And you're saying that Mr. Rodriguez was acting irrationally. You just said that, right?
Yes.
Trying to get away from you, that when you came to the door and closing it, that's acting irrationally, right?
Shouting obscenities, screaming, "Get out of my trailer," when we're not inside of his trailer. Refusing to cooperate with the investigation, even though we're trying to communicate reasonably with him, and then trying to lock us out is irrational.
So you think that somebody that doesn't want to have contact with the police is being irrational? That's how you're defining it, right?
No, I'm saying that all of his behaviors.
Shouting obscenities, according to you, is acting irrationally, right? That was part of what you just said, right?
It's part of what I just said.
You used obscenities, you were acting irrationally then, right?
I don't know for sure if I used obscenities or not. I told you yesterday it's possible. It's not uncommon to communicate at the same level of a suspect in a situation like that when you're under threat.
Right, and since you, assuming that you did use obscenities, that means you were acting irrationally, right?
No.
Well, you're saying he was just because that's what he was doing, right?
No, I didn't say it was just because he was using obscenities.
The clothing, at this point, there was nothing at that point that indicated, other than your profiling that view of the clothing, other than that, there was nothing that indicated to you that there was any weapon that he had, right?
Other than the weapons violation on the PACE record?
Right, but that didn't stop you from going to the door, right?
No, it did not.
It didn't stop you from going in through the door, even though you didn't even know where Officer Virgilio was, right?
It did not. I assumed Officer Virgilio would be right behind me.
You didn't know where he was, though, right?
Did not.
and you felt alone, right?
During this situation, when he failed to engage, yes.
And so then when you have this gun that you say that you're pointing to the ceiling, Mr. Rodriguez doesn't advance on you, does he?
He lunged backwards.
That's right. He tried to get away from you, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
It wasn't like, again, when somebody lunges away from you, that's not a threatening gesture, is it?
No.
And you continue your activities at that point, right? You continue going after him, right?
Holstered my weapon and went to go hands-on with him. I did.
And you're not worried about your dog at all at that point, right? Because the dog understands that you mean business because you got that gun in your hand, right?
I'm absolutely worried about the dog. I was worried about the dog the whole time, but I still have a job to do, Mr. Martinez. I don't get to run away. My job is not to run away from criminals that don't want to be apprehended. My job is not to run away from a suspect just because he has a dog with him. That's not my job. I am required. My job is to go in and do the things that nobody else wants to do.
Okay. You say that he's a criminal. You didn't know at that point he was a criminal. He was just somebody trying to get away from you, wasn't he?
Domestic violence. He still had to be
You didn't know
detained.
he was a criminal. You used the word criminal, right? You had already decided that he was a criminal, didn't you? Didn't you just say that? That it's your job to go after criminals because nobody wants to do that job, right?
Objection. Which question shall we answer, Judge?
Compound sustained.
Didn't you say, sir, that it's a job that nobody wants to do, right?
I did.
And isn't it a fact you got paid for it, though, right?
I did.
It's a job that you love, right?
It is.
And with regard to all the other people that you know that you've talked to, they all love their jobs, don't they?
Yes, most cops I know love their jobs.
Sure. So when you say it's a job that nobody wants to do, that's just sort of a sympathy ploy because you want us to feel sorry for you, right?
No,
Well, you were getting paid for it, right?
I was.
And if you worked overtime, you would get paid for that, right?
Yes, sir.
If you went to training, they would pay you for that, right?
Most training, yes. Some training, no.
You got insurance benefits, didn't you?
I did.
So it was a job that provided you compensation, didn't it?
Yes.
So you're inside his trailer, he lunges back, right? And then you continue to go after him, correct?
Yes.
Even though you don't know at that point where Officer Virgilio is, right?
Yes.
When you go after him, that's when he's near the area towards the back of the trailer, going back to where the bedrooms are, right?
No.
So he's still in front of you then, right?
Towards the edge of the tile area.
So he doesn't lunge back very far, right?
No.
At that point, if you would have had or believed that your life was really in danger, you could have called for a backup, right?
I advanced to put hands on him and get him in handcuffs.
I'm not asking you what you did after that. You just said that he went backwards and there was a space of separation, wasn't there?
There was.
And at that point, you could have called for a 906, right?
I could have.
And in fact, there's plenty of officers that would have responded, right?
Yes.
You instead decided to continue to go forward, right?
Yes.
And that's when you decided to put hands on him again, right?
Yes, sir.
He didn't put hands on you. You put hands on him, right?
I did.
Officer Virgilio, you haven't seen him at this point still, right?
No.
And you grab his left hand, right?
Yes.
And when you go to grab his left hand, you believe that it was slippery, right?
Yes.
You believe it was consistent with somebody washing their hands, right?
Yes.
There's nothing that indicates that anybody who washes their hands, there's anything criminal about that, is there?
No.
And it doesn't indicate that he even knew you were coming over just by the mere fact that he's washing his hands, right?
I'm sorry, say that again?
There's nothing suspicious about an individual washing their hands, is there?
No.
You then go to grab the left arm again. He does not approach you. You approach him again, correct?
Yes.
Officer Virgilio, you don't see him then, right?
No.
But Officer Virgilio then comes to assist at some point, right?
Yes, after I pulled my pepper spray out, yes, he did.
Well, before the pepper spray, didn't you also tell us that he went hands on?
When I pulled my pepper spray out,
So you
he
pulled?
came in and put his hands on. That was the first and only time that he came in and put his hands on. When I pulled my pepper spray out to spray him.
That's not my question. My question is, that's when you saw him come in, right?
Yes.
You weren't paying attention to him before, so you can't say whether he'd been in there before, right?
The whole time we were up in the doorway in that little tile there, like, I'm pretty sure I would have seen him if he did.
Well, you just told us yesterday that you weren't paying attention to where he was, right?
I didn't know where he was.
Right, because you weren't paying attention. In fact, when you even came to the door, you didn't even know if he was right behind you, right?
No, I did not. I assumed he was.
You assumed that he was, right? But even though you assumed that he was right behind you when you came up to the door, and you're inside now, you're not assuming, you're not making the same assumption that he's inside there. That assumption doesn't apply once you get inside the trailer, right?
Well, if you look at the size of the tile area. If you look at the size of the tile area, it's...
Yes or no? That assumption no longer applies.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
You said that you assumed that he was behind you when you came to the door.
Yes.
But once you go inside the trailer, that assumption that he's behind you no longer applies, correct?
I don't know.
Why don't you know? You're the one that's making these assumptions.
Well, I was pretty engaged with the suspect at the time. I don't know where he's at. He was not within my sight. I could not see him, and we were in the tile area, which tells me he's not in the tile area. I don't see him. He didn't go hands-on with him.
That's contrary to what you told us yesterday, that when you went to go hands-on with the individual and throughout this whole thing, you never even looked for Officer Virgil, right? Didn't you tell us that yesterday?
I don't know that I said I never looked. I was looking at the suspect.
Right, and you were focused. Do you remember telling us that?
My focus was on the multiple threats, the 2 threats, and the dog.
You were focused on something else other than Officer Virgil, correct?
Yes.
So, when he went to go hands-on with you, you don't know where he was immediately when he went hands-on with the suspect, do you?
Say that again, please.
You said you went hands-on with the suspect and that you were about to pepper spray him. We were talking about that. You remember that?
Yes.
That's when you agreed that Officer Virgilio was attempting to help you, right?
Yes.
You didn't see where he came from to help you, right?
I saw him come up from the side of me, from
It would
behind
have been
me.
the left, right?
Yes.
So he could have been standing there all that time. You just didn't see where he was, correct? Because you were so focused on what was going on in front of you, right?
Compound questions.
He couldn't have been standing there the whole time because the suspect and I were moving back and forth in that tile area.
So you were moving back and forth toward the door?
We did when I grabbed a hold of him and tried pulling him. At the point that I had pulled my gun out, we were actually up against the door jamb.
So you were up against the door jamb, right?
His body was actually up against the door jamb. That's where he pressed off and lunged backwards.
But he was at the door jamb and you were near the breech of the door, right?
Yes.
Why would you expect Officer Virgilio to be inside the trailer if you are at the breech of the door? Why would you expect him to be inside?
Why would I? Because I was hands-on with that suspect. He should have come in and gone hands-on. He should have gone hands-on the
Was
first...
there room at the breech of the doorway for both of you? You're saying that this small area here that you indicated was accurate, that there was room for 3 people here in this breach. That's what you're saying, right?
And he could have squeezed in.
Yeah.
He could have squeaked by there, absolutely.
You're saying that as you're going hands-on there, you're saying, which is near the door, which is to the outside, you're saying that at that point, you believe that Officer Virgilio should have been inside the trailer, right? In order to be a good cover officer, right?
He should have been inside.
Right. And you should have been at the breech of the door with the suspect, right?
I should have been. I was.
Well, what you're saying is when you were there, it is your opinion that in order for Officer Virgilio to be a good cover officer, he couldn't have been covering from the back, he had to have been covering from inside. That's what you're saying, right?
No, what I'm saying is the minute I went hands-on, he should have gone hands-on.
But the
The minute the suspect receded further into the trailer towards the edge of the tile, he had plenty of room to squeeze in there and go hands-on. As a matter of fact, he wouldn't have had to squeeze. He could have just walked in and went hands-on. When I pulled that suspect up against the door, no, that's not what he did.
Did you just tell me?
What he did when he went hands-on, we were at the edge of the trailer.
He's not answering my question.
Sustained. Next question.
Sir, when he went hands-on, you said that you were at the breech of the door, right?
When I went hands-on, when I had just...
Second time, right, and Officer Virgilio went hands-on, too, you were at the breech of the door, right?
When I went hands-on with him, when I grabbed him and he pulled away from me and I put my arm underneath his, we moved back towards the doorway. We were not in the breach.
One of the things that we were discussing previously was that you indicated, we talked about how small the doorway was. Remember that just
Yes.
now? And you were telling me that this is the general area that you were when you began to go hands-on right before you used the pepper spray, right?
No, we were at the edge of the tile.
So now,
When I,
were we not discussing just previously that you were here near the doorway, near the door jamb? Did we just discuss that, yes or no?
yes.
At what point are you saying that you were at the door jamb?
When I grabbed a hold of him after
First
he
or the
jerked
second?
away.
Which time? First or the second time?
The second time I grabbed a hold of him, when I put my arm up underneath
Right.
his bicep and pulled him, that's when we moved towards the door jamb.
And at that point, you got near the door jamb, is what you told us, right?
Yes.
You grabbed him. And that's when Officer Virgilio started to help, right?
No,
Well, didn't you just say that you brought out your OC spray?
not at that point. I did not say that.
Well, you didn't bring out your OC spray the second time that you grabbed this individual.
I pulled my gun out and pointed it at the dog that was advancing. Then he lunged backwards. He pushed off of that door jamb and lunged backwards towards the edge of the tile. I holstered, advanced on him, tried to grab him. He pulled away. I pulled my pepper spray out. That is when Officer Virgilio came in and put his hands
You're
on him.
saying that the initial contact involving the grabbing of the arm actually took place near the door jamb then, right?
I had stepped in and pushed the
Yes
door
or
open.
no?
It was in the doorway.
Right, and it was very close to the breach, right?
It was in the doorway. I defined close.
Well, you're the one that was there. You said that Mr. Rodriguez was the one that pushed away from the door jamb, right?
Yes.
And that's how he was able to free himself from you, right?
Yes.
If he pushes himself from the door jamb, that by necessity means that he's near the breach, right?
No, he pushes himself backwards towards the edge of the tile.
I understand that he pushes himself towards the edge of the tile, but you said he uses the breach to push away from you, right?
It's the wall area, the door jamb area.
The door jamb, which is right here, right?
Yes.
And he pushes away to try to get away from you because he's resisting going out, right?
Yes.
And depending on where he places his hand, it could be that some of his fingers are outside of the trailer. It could be that all of his hands inside the trailer, right?
No, I recall a good portion of his body overlapping the door jamb.
So he was here at the door jamb then when he did this.
He was, along a portion of his body, a good portion of his body was overlapping the jamb along the wall. He pushed off of the wall or door jamb area. I didn't see exactly where he placed his hand to do so.
And when you're about to take him out, you're saying that you don't see Officer Virgilio at that point either, right?
No.
And you believe that that's when Officer Virgilio should have been inside, right? So you could see him inside, right?
No, so he
Yes
could
or
be
no?
going
You believe
hands-on with that.
Officer Virgilio should have been inside, yes or no, at that point?
Yes.
Then, sir, you do pull out your OC spray, right?
Then when he pushed back towards the edge of the tile area?
At some point, you pulled out your OC spray, right?
Yes.
And Officer Virgilio was present for that, right?
Yes.
And this OC spray is what, deployed right about here? Where I'm standing?
Yes, in that area, I believe.
And at this point, to this point where now you have the OC spray that you're going to use, Mr. Rodriguez has not made any aggressive movements towards you at all, has he?
No, he only resisted.
Right, he wanted to get away from you, right?
Yes, sir.
It wasn't like he was going for the bow and arrow or anything like that, right?
No, he was not.
It wasn't like he was throwing things at you, right?
No, he did not.
He was speaking to you though, right?
He was screaming at that point when I pulled the pepper spray out.
When you say that he was screaming, are you saying that he was screaming in a loud voice? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's what I recall.
Very loud, right?
He was shouting at me.
And you were also shouting, right?
I gave him commands.
I'm not asking you whether or not you gave commands. I'm asking about the tone of your voice. You were also screaming at him, right?
You were asking about the level of my voice, not the tone, but the level.
Was it a high level then or a low level?
It was a command, get down on the ground.
And just like, you said it just like that, like you just said it.
No, it was slightly louder.
It was loud, according to you, what you were telling him, right?
Yes.
And you said it loud enough so that he could hear it, right?
Yes, sir.
You didn't want there to be any confusion about who you were and what you were asking him to do, right? And this is when he, according to you, is cursing, right?
Yes.
You don't find that offensive, do you? In fact, you've cursed yourself before, haven't you?
Yes.
It's something that may be part of the general lexicon or part of people's vocabularies, correct?
Yes.
That's not what made this, that doesn't mean that he was being aggressive, right? At that point, he was just saying things to you, wasn't he?
He wasn't being aggressive, advancing. He wasn't grabbing or throwing anything.
He may have been saying, get the fuck out of my trailer, right?
Yes.
He may have saying, where the fuck is the search warrant, right?
Yes.
Things like that, right?
Yes, sir.
And you told him, I don't need no fucking search warrant. Didn't you tell him that?
No, I did not.
You didn't use the word motherfucker?
I didn't say I didn't use the word motherfucker. I don't specifically recall using that, and again, it's very possible. I did not tell him. I did not tell him I don't need a search warrant. I don't need a search warrant, motherfucker, or however you said it.
Well, didn't you just tell us when you testified previously that you really didn't need a search warrant?
No, we did not.
Right. And so, at that point with the OC spray, you take it out. What side of the belt is the OC spray?
It was just in front of my holster. On the right side, it was right where the belt overlapped.
And you have time to reach for that OC spray, right?
Yes.
You don't feel in such danger at that point that you have to go for your handgun, right? You feel you can use the OC spray, right?
Yes.
And it's because at that point you don't perceive any threat at that point. You just want to subdue him to take him into custody. That is what is in your mind at that point, right?
I do still perceive a threat. I do perceive a threat with the dog in there.
So the dog is there, but I thought that the dog had already gone back. Didn't you just tell us previously that the dog had already retreated?
It's advanced, but when I pepper sprayed him, my focus was on the suspect, not on the dog.
Now, before you pepper sprayed him, where was the dog? Before you pepper sprayed him, the dog had stopped his advance. Where was the dog?
Do you have a picture of the trailer?
No, I want you to tell me. Yes, I do have a picture of the trailer. Right there is the hallway that leads to the back. Right here apparently is a sofa. Right here is
When he stopped his advance, he was actually on the other side of the suspect, not far on the other side of the suspect by where the chair is in that area.
Assuming this is the place where he ended up after you killed him, was he this way or this way?
Okay. Where the chair was located on the south wall, okay, if that's the chair, then the dog was the other side of the suspect in that general area where the chair was.
And he had stopped his advance, right?
Yes, sir.
And the suspect, according to you, Mr. Rodriguez, moved backwards, right?
He moved back that way.
So he moved this way then, right?
Yes.
And that's when you used the OC spray right here, correct?
In that area.
Right here, right?
Yes, around the edge of the tile area.
And if Officer Virgilio was pepper sprayed, that means he was inside the trailer, right?
Yes, I told you, he came inside and put his hands on the suspect when I pepper sprayed him.
I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you at the time that you pepper sprayed it, this individual, Officer Virgilio, or what you were able to see, was inside the trailer, right?
Yes.
And previous to that, he had also gone hands-on, right? Inside the trailer, right?
No, he did not.
He never touched the suspect's hands. Officer Virgilio never touched according to you, touched the suspect's arms.
Up until I pulled my pepper spray out. That's the only time.
So you're saying that before that, he never touched the suspect, right?
Before that, he did not touch the suspect.
So you pepper sprayed the person, right here, right?
Yes, in that area, yes.
And he has a reaction to it, right?
His response was, "Why'd you fucking spray me?"
Right. You do remember him using that. That's something that you do remember, right? But you don't remember what you said, right?
And I said, "Get on the ground."
Right. And in fact, well, no, you told us that you don't remember whether or not you used the word motherfucker. Remember that?
Yes, I did say that.
Right. And in fact, you do remember that Officer Virgilio, after you shot and killed this individual, said, he's fucking dead, or words to that effect, leave him alone. Something like that, right?
Yeah, he did say, "What for? He's fucking dead."
Right. You do remember, it seems, the way you're presenting this, you remember what everybody else said, including their obscenities except yours, right?
I'm not saying that.
Well, you remember what Officer Virgilio said. He's fucking dead. That's what you said, right?
Yes.
You remember that the suspect was using the word, right?
Yes.
And he was using those words when you tried to get into the trailer, right?
Yes.
But you don't remember what you said, right?
No, I remember giving him commands. I don't remember using any obscenities, but I'm not saying it's outside the realm of possibility.
Right, you probably did, you said before, right?
It's very possible.
So, at that point, he uses some obscenities, and at that point, Officer Virgilio is standing next to you, right? He's in the area where you pepper sprayed this individual, right?
He grabbed onto him when I had pepper sprayed him, yes.
And at that point, you do see Officer Virgilio, right?
Yes, sir.
And he now is proper cover at that point, right?
He's hands-on for the moment.
Is that yes or no? Is that proper
At that
cover?
moment, yes, sir.
That's the moment that we're talking about. We're not talking about any other moment. You understand that, right?
Yes, sir.
So, at that point, he is inside, I mean Officer Virgilio is inside the trailer, right? And he's standing right about where I'm standing, right about here, right?
A little more towards the edge of the tile area.
How about right here?
No, a little more towards the
This right
edge,
here.
right around in that area where I had pepper sprayed him. Yes, that's where he went.
You were standing here when you pepper sprayed him, right?
I was standing in that area. I don't remember specifically or exactly where my foot placement was when I grabbed him, where
But you
I
said you were
pepper
in
sprayed
this
him.
area, yes or no?
Yes, sir.
And that means that Officer Virgilio was to your left, if that's how you're standing, right about where I'm standing, right?
We were facing the north, where the couch area is where we were facing.
So you were like this. You were facing this way when you pepper sprayed him.
Yes, sir.
And that would mean that Mr. Rodriguez was over here, right?
Yes,
I thought you told us that the dog was over here.
it was.
And so now you're not worried about the dog at all because you're focused on Mr. Rodriguez, right? Because whatever threat there was with the dog is no longer there, right?
It's a dual threat, and I still have to focus on both of them. I was still worried about the dog, but I still have to do
Whether
my
you're worried
job.
about the dog is not my question. My question is you turned and then you went and looked to the north to where Mr. Rodriguez was pepper sprayed, right?
Yes, sir.
And right here to you, would it be to your left then that Officer Virgilio was?
Yes.
So he would be standing right here, correct?
Yes.
Right next to the dog, right?
I don't know. I wasn't looking at the dog.
Well, didn't you just tell me that you were looking at both Mr. Rodriguez and the dog?
No,
You
I
just
said-
told us that.
I said my concern was both threats. I did not say I was looking at both of them.
I
How
see.
can I look at both of them when one is here and one is over here?
So you're concerned about it, but you're not looking at that threat, is what you're saying. That's different, right?
I'm concerned about it, yes.
Right. And you did say that the last time that you saw the dog it was right over here, right?
Yes, sir.
And it wasn't barking, right?
At that moment, I don't know.
Again, you don't know. Wasn't that an important portion of the investigation? Because you say you're concerned. You don't have to look at the dog to know if it's barking, right? You can actually hear that, right?
Yes.
So you can't tell us that the dog was barking, can you?
At that moment, I can't tell you whether the dog was barking or not, no.
But you could have heard him if he was, right?
I could have.
Right. And we do know that he was right here per your own assessment, correct? That's not where my hand is pointing, right?
Where I had last seen him, yes.
Right. And this is where Officer Virgilio was, which would be right next to the dog, right?
Would be pretty close to the dog, yes.
Within biting distance of the dog, right?
Where I had last seen it, yes.
And if he was going to bite anybody, that dog, he would have been Officer Virgilio because he was closer to it than you, right? If we're talking about geographical locations, right?
Possibly, yes.
Well, you keep saying it's possible. Are you saying that the dog is going to ignore a juicy leg and go after you over here? Is that what you're saying?
No.
If everything is as you tell us, you are then going after the individual here. What does he do when you get pepper sprayed him then?
When I pepper sprayed him,
Yeah,
he said, "What'd you spray me for?"
right?
I holstered my pepper spray and I reached out and grabbed him.
And at that point, you're still not paying attention to this dog, right? You're not paying attention to Officer Virgilio, right? You don't know if he even goes outside or not, right?
He ran backwards. He said himself he went outside.
I know that's what you say, that he said, that he ran backwards, but my point to you is you don't know that he did that because you weren't seeing that, right?
Once he left my sight, once he left my peripheral, no, I did not see him.
It could have been that he was standing there all this time, right?
He said he went outside.
I know you keep saying that's what he said, but I want to know about your perception because you're the one that's making certain claims here. You're saying that when you're down here, you pepper sprayed the individual, you're not paying attention to Officer Virgil. You don't know where he went, right?
Where he went.
Could have been that he stayed inside. You don't know, right?
It could have been.
Right. And same thing with the dog. You don't know where the dog was at that point. It could have been near the TV set at that point then, right?
Yes, sir.
But the bottom, not the bottom line, but what really we do know is that even though you are aggressively going after Mr. Rodriguez and he's screaming obscenities at you, the dog is not attacking you, is he?
No.
Then you go again, you initiate more contact with Mr. Rodriguez, right? In this corner here, right?
When I had pulled the shirt off, when he came out of his shirt.
I'm just saying, you said that you pepper sprayed him, right?
Yes.
And you pepper sprayed him right here, right?
In that area.
Did he go down or did he remain standing?
He remained standing.
And then that's when you closed the gap between you and him, right?
That's when I reached out and grabbed him by the shoulders.
He didn't reach out and grab you, did he?
No.
You were the one that was the aggressor, if you will, correct?
I was the one trying to detain him, yes.
You were the one that was initiating all this action, right?
Yes, sir.
He didn't reach out and you got close. Didn't hit you. Didn't smack you, did he?
No.
He didn't use any fingernails and claw at you.